Hello. Welcome to this new video. This time we are going to be talking about the Social Engineering Toolkit. In this case, I'm using a Kali computer, and if you click on the main menu, you go to Social Engineering Tools. You're going to have an option that says SE Toolkit or Social Engineering Toolkit. And just like Metasploit, Social Engineering Toolkit is a toolkit that is going to have multiple tools for you to test and conduct social engineering. So I'm going to authenticate and I'm going to type the password correctly. And when you do, you're going to see a menu. This is super simple to navigate, and a lot of these options are self-explanatory, right? We have social engineering attacks, which is a menu that if you go into that, you're going to have multiple options within that menu. We have penetration testing, we have third-party modules, you have the option to update the configuration and help and credits. So for this video, we're going to be accessing option number uh, one, which is social engineering attacks. And then from here, you're going to notice that you have multiple different options. You have this spear phishing attack, website attacks, blah, blah, blah. I'm going to concentrate on website attacks. So I'm going to do two to get into the options. And once you are there, you're going to have multiple predefined options for website attacks. You have Java applet attacks methods, Metasploit browse exploit methods, so on and so forth. And we have credential harvester attack methods. And this is one we're going to be demonstrating today. Now, I must say that a lot of these options are going to work right out of the box, but some won't. And it's not normal, right? Like some of those things may require more configuration than others, depending on what you are trying to do. For the purpose of this video, we're going to be using credential harvester attack, and we're going to see how it's going to be able to work natively on some sites, and it's not going to be able to work on other sites because the sites may have security controls in place to prevent this type of attacks. So, but this is just for demonstration purposes. So let's go through that. We're going to select number three. And then you have more options. You have website templates, you have site cloner, and you have custom imports. And if you read here, you're going to have the description of what each of these options is going to do for you. In my case, for the purpose of this video, we're going to do number two, which is a site cloner. Now, when you clone a site, and what we're doing here, we're doing this exercise for testing purposes in a controlled environment, meaning that I'm not trying to social engineer anyone else or try to trick anyone else into clicking into these links for me to harvest the credentials, but rather this is the process that I want to show you how it works so you can have a much better understanding of how attackers are able to perform this type of attacks. And I'm not going to configure the entire infrastructure for this to be legitimate, meaning to have someone access this a from a from the internet and do it here, because I'm going to have to do port forwarding and I'm going to have to do a lot of things that I don't want to do it. So what I'm doing is this. This is my, let me bring this. This is my Kali computer when I'm going to be running social engineering framework. I'm going to be cloning a public site that once that clones happens, and by cloning, I'm not cloning the entire site. I'm just cloning the login page because that's the one that I want to capture the credentials on. And then I'm gonna you access that site from the browser on my personal computer or this computer, the same Kali computer, just to demonstrate how the application works and how to capture credentials. If you want to do this in a more realistic way, you either public this or run this on a public site, maybe on AWS or something like that. If you want to be more realistic, you may want to create DNS names for that if you want. Or you're going to have to hide the IP address of the that users are going to be connecting, and you're going to see that in action now. Also, in this case, I'm doing this everything on my local computer just for testing purposes. So what we're seeing here is this: the IP address for the post bagging harvester, right? So this is the IP address that your victims are going to connect to. So ideally, the way this works, you copy or clone a site, and then you have to point the victims to that site somewhere. In my case, I'm using the same IP address of my colleague computer because, again, this is for testing purposes. So I'm going to hit enter. If I can hit enter, what happened here? Okay, and now it is prompting me to enter the site address, the URL that I want to clone. In this case, I have two URLs that I'm going to be using for demonstration purposes. The first one is from unity.edu, that is a university um, login page, and I'm going to copy the entire URL. Notice that I'm not copying just https my.unity.edu, because the rest of the URL is part of the login page that I need, right? So you have to make sure that you copy the entire URL for the login page that you are trying to clone. So just keep that in mind. So I have the URL. I'm going to paste it in here so I don't make any errors when I type it. And I'm going to hit enter. So what's going to happen is that this has made a copy of that URL that has the login box. And when I connect now to, in this case, my colleague computer on a web browser, I'm going to be presented with a similar page that I'm going to see. So what I want to do is, first of all, let me show you what the real URL looks like. And this is it right here. You go to my Unity login and you have a username and password to log in, right? Simple enough. Let me open an in private, new private window, and I'm gonna connect to my IP address. And remember, this IP address is hosting a cloned page of the original login page. And as you could see, it is exactly the same. Let me just bring this right here so we can compare. And as you can see, it looks the same. Obviously, you have a lot of signs this is not legitimate, but there are ways that attackers can work around that, right? Like, for starters, look, we're using HTTP, not HTTPS. You're using an IP address, but that's what social engineering is. Attackers are trying to trick people into doing things just by pretending or changing things. Anyway, that's like another video or multiple videos just to talk about it. So as you can see right here, we're gonna be presented with a login page, and we're gonna log into the site. Let's say that we are um, super student is the name of the username, and the password is my secret password. I believe that I mistyped that anyway. And I'm gonna hit login and check what's gonna happen here, right? I'm gonna hit login, and once I hit login, the system is gonna give me it didn't show an error message, but it didn't show anything that was successful, but it redirected the cloned page to the original site, as you can see here. So be this may go unnoticed by people because the first time they type the username and password, it's not going to work, or it's going to blink just as you saw. But then they're going to be presented with a real page, and they are going to try to sign in one more time. And this time, when they sign in, if they have the proper username and password, it's going to be successful. But the damage has already been done because the credential has been captured. So if you come here um, the logs of the system, you're gonna see that you're gonna be presented with the username that I typed, super student, and the password that I typed. Now, the fact that someone has a username and password does not necessarily mean they're going to be able to successfully log in to that account. In this case, it doesn't look like they have multi-factor authentication enabled. Maybe another authentication method is going to is going to present the challenge once I log in, which I doubt it will. Maybe it will. Who knows? But this shows that this specific site could be improved when it comes to the security of the site and the design of the site to prevent this type of attack. Now, this is a very basic, super simple attack, right? I mean, it's still successful. That's what social engineering is. You have to keep that in mind. When you're dealing with social engineering, you don't have to be a rocket scientist or anything like that. These attackers look for the weak points, that they can exploit in the human aspect of people, right? So they tend to present things in different ways. So anyway, I'm not gonna get into it. I want to present another example of a site that is not gonna work. So what I'm gonna do for that, I'm just gonna get out of the application, and I'm going to start a complete new session, and you know what that is. So I'm going to go to the main menu, social engineering. So I'm going to come here, you know the drill. And this time I'm going to try to connect to a banking site. Okay, so I'm going to do engineering attacks, websites, credential harvester, and I'm going to do site cloner. So in this case, again, same story. I'm gonna connect, or I'm gonna be hosting on my same computer. This is just for testing purposes. Obviously, if you wanna run this in a more realistic way, you're gonna have to, um, do a lot more configuration than what I'm doing now. So I just want to show you how the login page for TD Bank is. So I'm gonna say block, and I'm gonna type that URL here, paste selection, and that's cloning the site. And I'm gonna open a new incognito window. In this case, it's private window. I'm gonna go 192.168.120, and you're gonna notice that the site is attempting to load. You're gonna see things happening in the background, but the site is gonna crash. So there are many reasons why this happens, and you could perhaps fix some of those reasons. But if the site, again, as I mentioned before, if the site uses dynamic fields, JavaScript authentication, anti CSRF token protections, and a lot of these web practices or security best practices when it comes to website design, it's going to make it more difficult for attackers to successfully do this. So what are the takeaways from this video? The takeaway from this video is this: simple sites are more susceptible to simple attacks than more complex sites. So you can see that in here. This is a super simple tool to use. We're not doing any coding, we're not doing any testing, we're not writing any code. We're just following a wizard to clone a login page to capture the credentials. This is not the only way attackers do it, but this is one of the many ways that it could be done. The other thing that you can take away from here is educating your users, making sure that they do authenticate the legitimate site. Make sure that you run a some type of security awareness campaign on regular basis where you can train users to look at the address bar to make sure that if they see something that doesn't look right, if they don't see that they're using a valid certificate, they don't connect to that site or they report the site. Now, I have to be honest with you, for more complex attacks, they're gonna, like get rid of these warning of the wrong certificates and they're gonna present something in there. So they may create like another URL that is gonna be presented to the user. So a lot of those things can be done, and most importantly, if you're part of an organization, or if you are in charge of security for the organization and you're working with vendors, make sure that when they deploy or create sites, they follow security best practices. And there are many different ways that websites and can be improved nowadays, or I should say credentials, to prevent token thefts and to prevent things of that nature, right? In the worst case scenario, let's say that somebody captures a username and a password. If you are relying on just a username and a password to sign into a site, there's a big problem right there. I mean, if an organization only relies on username and passwords to authenticate users to a site, there's a huge problem. There's a huge security risk, especially nowadays. They're using technology from the 2000s, probably 20 years. They're 20 years behind. There are many different ways that you can improve that with some type of multi-factor authentication or using a one-time password. So many different things. So anyway, I just extended the video just talking because I'm passionate about this. But I just wanted to show you this. So if you're new to security, these are some of the tools that you can learn, that you can get better, that you can practice, so you can have a much better understanding of how things work in the wild. So if you found this information useful, all I ask you to do is to click on the like button, consider subscribing to the channel, and feel free to leave a nice comment in the comment section because that helps with the algorithms. Thanks for watching, and I'll talk to you on the next video.